Welcome back, Dragon Ballers, to Get the Mic. This is the only show where your host on the left, Al,
And your host on the right, Brock.
dissect fiction for its mythological significance. And in this episode, we're talking about Dragon Ball episode 46, which is Bulma's big failure.
Bulma's big failure and Bulma's bad day in the English, but I think that big failure is
Big
more
failure
apt.
is better because, as we talked about last episode, it's kind of foreshadowed that Bulma's mode of being, her spirit, her rebellious attitude, as elucidated by her parents, really comes back to, or let's say, comes home to roost in this episode.
Right. It comes to a head. And we kind of talked a little bit in the last episode about the idea of this carnival in the sky, sort of on the edge of Bulma's experience. And now we're going to see the fallout of that, where now we're transitioned sort of back into the world. Now that Bulma's decided that she says, I'm going to go get the Dragon Balls in the last episode. I'm going to go get the Dragon Balls and wish for a boyfriend better than you, Yamcha, essentially. And now that she's on the path of enlightenment to get the Dragon Balls, we're back in the world. We're back in reality for Bulma.
Right. And the assumption that she's already beyond this reality is not necessarily the case. Additionally, I think it is significant to say we are no longer in filler territory, as this episode and subsequent episodes are directly involved and tied into the manga and canon, meaning the spirit of it will be even more aligned than before. Anything else to say before we start, Brock?
No, I think that that's going to be self-evident as soon as we start talking about this episode.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, the thing, and Bulma's big failure right there. So, we see a little bit of a, not even a recap, but kind of a prologue to this, where Goku and Bulma are flying through the sky on the Keen-tone. Bulma is nestled within Goku's shirt, and they are flying through the mountains, and eventually they get to the sea. So, eventually they arrive, and we see them traverse over rivers and cliffs and mountains, but eventually they arrive at the sea. And this is to say, right, that Bulma's ultimate goal here is to go and interact with the unknown and bring back the knowledge that she can gain from it, which is exactly what is the point of gathering and harvesting the wisdom of the Dragon Balls. So, we do also notice that Bulma is using the radar to navigate where the Dragon Ball is. She says they have a little bit of a ways to go, and that's kind of where we end off. They arrive at the point of the Dragon Ball. Also, Bulma tells Goku to make the Keen-tone go faster, thinking, and I think this is actually a point I want to mention. What do you think about her wanting the Keen-tone to go faster, Brock?
Well, that's just her impatience, right? She thinks that she's entitled to something again in getting the Dragon Balls, right? She's like, why can't this be an easier process? Whereas anyone who knows the way or the Tao is that by by thinking that way, you are not able to stay on the Tao.
Fair enough. And I think too it is to say that she underestimates the ability for the Tao, the Tao's propensity to find what it is they're seeking, because I mean, even with the first boost of speed, she is already considering that it's too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Goku can handle it being as fast as it is, even with the several bursts of speed that he induces
Right.
upon it.
It's great because all of that sets the stage for then Bulma isn't even ready for what she thinks she's entitled to, right? Which is the intensity of getting where she wants to get, which is finding the Dragon Ball in the first place, is something that is overwhelming, right? It's something that Goku's used to because he's lived this, right? He's been out sort of in the world in an embodied experience, whereas a lot of Bulma's stuff seems to be still hypothetical and very like social.
Well, not only that, but I think that her inability to have perceptively adjusted to Goku's situation. Goku has tried to tell her multiple times that the collection of the Dragon Balls, while fun, has not been easy. She doesn't inquire any further. She shows no curiosity towards Goku's goals. She's very self-centered in that regard. And so she's unaware, and I think it's spelled out here by the narrator, she's unaware that the Red Ribbon Army is also after the same Dragon Ball that she is after.
Right. Well, now it's Bulma pitted against the Red Ribbon Army. Right. She's pitted against the malevolent spirit that's been out there approaching this same thing that she's trying to approach, that she hasn't had to contend with, that she hasn't had to be aware of. Right. And so it's that malevolence that she will have to contend with for the Dragon Ball.
And being unaware of it is part of the big failure that she encounters
Well,
in this
being
episode.
willfully unaware of it, right?
Well, and we'll see how that figures out here. So they travel across and they find in the ocean where the Dragon Ball is. But then we get to see the Red Ribbon Army and where they are in relation to our Dragon crew. So their General Blue, who is the penultimate commander in the Red Ribbon Army, is here in these islands also searching for the Dragon Ball. Now, I'm curious to know if you have any analysis of General Blue in the way that he is both described and visualized here in this scene.
He's sort of that anemic representation that we've seen. You know, we've made a comparison before, let's say with the Nazi Party, right? And that germophobia sort of associating with disgust sensitivity. And it reminds me of the stories about like Hitler, where he would shower something like 4 or 5 times a day, right? And all of these different really control oriented, over like tyrannically control oriented people who have also had this obsession with disgust sensitivity. And we see that Blue treats his subordinates with disgust whenever they don't execute exactly what he wants, right? So he treats them as something that needs to be exterminated, like the imperfection needs to be exterminated, right?
Right, and the personification of disgust here is true, and I would say that the reason that it's higher on the hierarchy than White is that White was just trying to find the Dragon Ball and kind of get by as a thug or a despot would, right? Get what they need and go on. But Blue is obsessed with the beauty of order and that anything non-orderly is disgusting to him.
Right.
And we'll see. I mean, he,
And
I don't
I
want to
think
give
it's also telling, right? He's got the blonde hair, blue eye stereotype going on
right,
too.
and he is the most, let's say, fascistic out of
Right.
all the generals we've seen, and he may even be more of a spiritual embodiment of what the Red Ribbon Army represents than Red when it comes down to it. But we'll get there
Mm-hmm.
eventually because he is almost a pure distillation of the ideology, right?
He's like a sign pointing to the ideology, or like an icon in a sense, where he's acting it out so precisely and so entirely, right? There's almost everything about him seems to be animated by it.
Well. Also, let me bring up the obvious elephant in the room. But Brock, he's gay.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I wanted to bring up because that's all most people's analysis of Blue is that he's gay and he is a bad stereotype for gay people. But
Yeah, I kind of forgot that people thought that about him and stuff, and that
that
was like
it's almost
significant.
it's not significant.
And so, yeah, okay, sure.
It's not significant, and in fact, the reason why he's quote gay unquote is because of what we've already mentioned about his character and how he's a distillation of that. But anyways, so then our dragon team eventually tries and they do find where the Dragon Ball is. Goku decides to go dive down to it, but Bluma says, "Oh, we don't have to do something so primitive as that. We have a submarine." And as she looks in her case of capsules, she realizes that the submarine is not only absent, but almost all of her capsules are absent. We've seen an iteration of this before, way back in season 1, where she lost all of her capsules. Uh, but I'm interested to hear because I think Brock is going to be able to explain this exactly as I also interpret it.
So the first time that she lost her capsules, we kind of have talked about it being a direct representation of her manipulation of Oolong and her abuse of sort of his goodwill towards her and things like that, right? And her extortion of him and disrespect towards him. And so she lost by disrespecting sort of her internal masculine voice, however corrupted it might be. By disrespecting it, she lost the boons of her father, so to speak. And so, why would it be now that as she tries to come and use those boons again, that they're not available to her, but instead something else is available to her? Um, I think,
Well, it's possible. It's perhaps foreshadowed by the events of the last episode and her disregard of the goodwill of Yamcha and her, let's say, uncharitable interpretation of his actions.
not only that, but her disregard of the spirit of her father, the way that she's interacted with him and she lashes out at her father for no good reason, right? And so there's this sort of manifestation here of her disrespect for what that spirit has given her, and so she loses it. Um, Not only that, but she calls forth the nakedness of the father, right? Rather than seeing the good that she's been
I don't know.
given.
I don't know that it's the nakedness of the father
Oh, interesting.
because I don't think that the inherent truth of the masculine's attraction towards the feminine is something to be naked about, let's say.
Well, I don't think that there's any shame in the naked form either, right?
Right. And I would say this as opposed to something like Roshi asking Bluma to lower her top,
Hmm.
that's definitely part of that weakness and nakedness of the father. But I don't know that this necessarily is. I think this is Bluma because she also tears them up. She doesn't want to think of her father as a masculine figure, only a paternal figure, right? Where it's not that sexualized part of it, and the sexualized part of masculinity is completely stripped away. What
That's
do you think
interesting.
about that?
See, I think that the reason that I made the nakedness to the father sort of analogy is it sort of reminded me of that idea that sort of the what this story is telling you is similar to what that story is telling you, to say that you should not willingly try to see the nakedness of your father. And though it's not a willing thing that Bulma does, what she does here is when she goes to look at when she tries to manifest what she psychologically has interpreted sort of or you could say she's unconsciously interpreted to be the effects of the paternal masculine spirit, she just gets this all of the negative, right? All of the I don't want to just say negative, but all of the thing that she's been trying not to acknowledge, which is the sexualization that comes with inevitably, becoming an adult,
That
becoming
maturity, right?
mature, right?
Exactly. And so she doesn't want to acknowledge it, um, or at least she doesn't want to acknowledge the consequences of it, which is exactly how this episode plays out. And
Hmm.
so Goku goes off to dive for the Dragon Balls while Bulma goes off into the interior of the island. And then we see oceans really are deep, huh? Says Goku as he travels through and starts to try and find where the Dragon Ball is. Bulma traveling around finds a lizard and is startled by it. And this is just a foreshadow that she
Yeah, I
is
like that little
unprepared.
scene.
She's unprepared for the chaos of the natural world,
Well,
right?
this is, I think, it's also foreshadowing for Blue, right? Where she sees this flower, this image of sort of like delicacy or of sort of like um
Orderliness,
orderly
beauty.
beauty, right? And then behind it, right, that what she didn't see when she leaned in to smell it, to see what it was like, right, to take it in, was that there was a lizard behind it, a predatory lizard, right, that hissed at her and then scared her. And so I think that's a fundamentally foreshadowing what her encounter with the Red Ribbon Army is.
Right, yeah, and it plays beautifully in this way.
Because also, I mean, think of it this way: Bulma's relationship to the orderly masculine spirit has only been that she's been the sort of beneficiary of its positive aspects, and then also sort of associates it on a in a sort of disconnected way with that lecherous
Well,
spirit and
right,
all of
she
that.
she
Right.
hasn't paid proper reverence to it, and we'll see how that plays out. But um, I think at any rate we can see the foreshadowing is about to pay off because Blooma's interaction upcoming here is going to be very telling on what's going on. So this is actually not um in order, obviously. Is this
Well,
right? This is right.
yeah, as she's wandering along, the helicopters just crest the hill and they see her
Oh,
and they
I
start
see.
chasing her.
Yes.
So
Okay.
they fire on her and she runs away because they're terrible shots and they can't catch her. And they land and they start asking her like, what is going on? Why are you even here?" Right? And then they
And
realize.
but before I mean, they realize, but before that, she does try to use and manipulate them sexually to give her what she wants, right?
Sure. Well, the first thing she does is she makes herself small, right? When they come to approach her, she collapses and then hunches herself down, right? So she doesn't physically have the ability to shrink herself and hide from them. It's important to note out because she gave that to Roshi.
Yes.
So that's something that she left behind as a result of her, um, honestly, her lack of character. Because when she comes to Roshi for the tools to get the Dragon Ball, she has to make sacrifices
Well,
because
she
she is
has
not
to.
living properly.
Right, exactly.
And so she's lost it as a result of that and now has to face this head on, right? She doesn't have her ability to get small. So this is
There
how
she is,
yeah,
hunched
this is how
over.
how we see her get small and make herself less threatening towards them so that she can use her feminine aspects to her advantage to wield that, right?
Right, and wielding that in order to I think that that's kind of what is indicative here is that wielding of it in the mushrooms in the background are
Mhm.
amazing. But the wielding of it to manipulate the men and masculine around you is as we've seen, just like with Oolong, a toxic mode of being and should not be replicated.
Right.
And so then the soldiers get down to try and talk to her, and she, like we said, was using her feminine wiles. Now, I mean, even right there, right? Sweet
Mhm.
16, she like winks at them and all that. And so these soldiers want to they
Yes. We
they
can't say
want
the
to
word because we
yes.
said the H word already.
Yes.
Too many words to say on YouTube.
Too many words.
Um,
But yeah,
but
they
they are definitely interested in her, and they ask her if she wants to play a game when they hear that she's 16.
yes.
And I think it's really, I like that they use that because it's almost like they're making a joke about the definition of a game in regards to her being in that transitional age, right? Which we set up in the last episode with the games and the sort of carnival.
And the carnival. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So and here we see that it's brought to fruition, right? That if she's going to act with this spirit where she flaunts her sexualization and exploits it for her advantage, we see exactly what is the potential of happening from that mode of being, right? And here it is. The let's say victimization of that spirit to the brutish masculine that is these soldiers.
Right, it's almost like an inversion of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, right? Where we have the girl who's, you know, ultimately in this situation called upon to cash a check that she shouldn't have tried to write with using these wiles to try to get what she wants, right? And so I don't think that necessarily she earns the response that she gets here, but they're more of a
It's
manifestation of
not
a
that
mode
she
of
earns
being.
it.
Yeah.
She's not I'm not like trying to victim blame
Oh
here,
no, nothing like that. It's
but
more like these guys are a manifestation of that what that response is without the moral compass, right? And something
Right.
that she has to be able to internalize to understand the value of that moral
And she
compass.
needs to be aware of
Yeah.
to act in the world of adults is that
Yeah.
there will be people who will be predatory towards a spirit that she's enacting.
Right. And so and I feel like these characters are sort of a manifestation of the fact that she has not done that and that she's
She
just
hasn't had
taken for
to.
granted that she hasn't had to, right?
Yes, exactly. So then what happens is Goku returns and he sees that Bluma is running from these soldiers, and he decides to basically, I don't want to say kill them, but
He has no regard for their life whenever he learns that they're part of the Red Ribbon Army. Now, I do want to point out whenever he hears Bulma's voice, he's taken a break, and he is eating the fruit just hanging out in the tree, right? Which is a very like Sun Wukong sort of like this is what he does. He goes out there, finds a place, and then he starts to indulge. And it's almost like this kind of symbolic thing where it's like while Goku's resting, this is what's happening. Right. And so he has to be called back into action to set this right, to save Bulma from something that she is not equipped to deal with, right?
and so he does, and he destroys these two Red Ribbon Army soldiers and meets back up with Bulma.
So he just destroys them though. Like whenever he realizes they're Red Ribbon, the first thing he does is he dives through the windshield of the first one
He does he
into
even
the first
say
one's
Red
face.
Ribbon? He does he even
Yeah.
mention? Yeah,
Yeah, he
that's
calls
what
it
I
out. He
thought.
says, "Oh, you're with the Red Ribbon, aren't you? You guys are mean," or something like that.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's a direct result of his encounters with General White, and to know how corrupt and predatory the spirit of General White was, that it gives Goku this response. Because remember, I mean, without Ader, Goku was done. Goku would not have survived Muscle
It's
Tower.
true to think, if you want to be really logical about it, that Goku could say, "These guys could kill me," because without Ader, Goku basically died. If a bullet could kill Goku, he would have died. You know, he was incapacitated completely to him.
Right, he was helpless. And and that's to say here that he is Goku has matured up to the idea that any one of these soldiers has the potential to be have the malevolence that General White had, and have that power over him, specifically when they're hunting someone less powerful than Goku who he cares about, like Bulma.
Right.
So he doesn't take any chances at all. He just immediately boom, drop kicks through the windshield, and then smashes with his power pole the other guy.
Just annihilates them, and then we get a nice shot of them exploding on the ground. And afterwards, Bulma says, "They were just a couple of perverts. You didn't have to go that far."
But it he did have to go that far. Basically, what we just described, right? That it's that spirit of the thuggery that can take advantage of those weaker than Goku, and that Goku cares about, that is the real danger in this situation.
Well, this is sort of the beauty of the themes and how they kind of rise to the surface of Dragon Ball is you have what we just talked about with Blue and his idea that these negative aspects need to be exterminated within his army. But then we see Goku having to approach that idea in whether or not these guys should be, well, exterminated, right? If he should hold back and try to save these guys or anything. And he doesn't try to save them, right? He literally exterminates them.
Which is the start, I would say, and we're gonna see a very much explanation, not explanation, but an expounding upon the idea of this in the next once we get past General Blue, let's say, because there are some things that Goku does that are really just like on the border. But
Well,
right,
I like that Goku also he just says peace after he kills him, right? And it's like he's treating it like a game. He's treating it like there's no consequence. Not it's almost like he didn't treat them as people, right? It's like, oh, I didn't kill a couple of people. I won the game, and by winning the game in this case
well,
meant
I mean,
ending these
technically, he
guys,
doesn't
right?
actually kill them. Like
Yeah.
they do both survive,
But essentially just crashes them down into the ground, like, just basically, like, that's it.
right, dominates them, let's say. And
Mhm.
so then we see that the last thing is Goku and Bluma decide to go to Master Roshi's to get a submarine so they can dive down to get the Dragon Ball. Obviously, any of the locals aren't going to help them because they've all been, let's say, militarized by the Red Ribbon Army or abandoned their own villages. Bluma's proved that by trying to go out friendly and discuss and try and find out ways to get a submarine. But we see that Goku and Bluma are gonna have to rely on the spirit of the ancestral wisdom to provide with them a path forward. And so they make that decision as Blue sights that he will catch them eventually and destroy them. Anything else to wrap up this episode, Brock?
Well, I think it's significant that immediately following this, Goku says, "Hey, you know what can get us to this Dragon Ball? Going and confronting Master Roshi," which is the
Well,
last thing that Bulma wants to do right now.
right, you using the positive masculine spirit to explore the unknown, which it is true. Bluma has iterated in this season that she does not respect that positive masculinity that goes forth and creates chaos from order.
Well,
Uh,
I'm realizing
order from
now.
chaos. Her rejection of her father, right? That's pretty much explained there. But go ahead, Brock.
Mm, I'm just realizing I misspoke earlier because this event is not after she gives up the band. So she could, I guess, technically have hidden herself with the band running away from these guys, but she didn't do it. But I was saying earlier that she had given it up, but she doesn't give it up until the beginning of the
Yeah, she
next
doesn't give it
episode.
up to the next. So
Um,
we'll correct the record at this
yeah,
point.
just realizing it because this is the bargain that she's going to have to strike. Right, is essentially a symbol of her acknowledging this wisdom that she's trying to learn here.
And that she has to pay for it, unlike Goku, who rarely has to pay for the wisdom he encounters. And it's because of the strength of spirit which they approach the question itself that's going to dictate that.
Hmm.
Anything else? I think
Um,
it was a good encapsulation of Bulma's growth and what she's going to be encountering in this season. It's kind of a fourth season. In this next couple of episodes, and what Bulma is going to encounter and how she's going to be able to overcome it, as well as Goku's, let's say, diving deep into the unknown that he still has yet to discover.
I think that's a good way of putting it.
Well, good. Then if you liked what you heard, please give us a like and subscribe. And if you're on Rumble, please give us a subscribe. We upload videos every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday on YouTube, and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on BitChute and Rumble. So if you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe to us on both of those sites as well. Follow us on Twitter. Anything else, Brock?
No, I think that's about it, Dragon Ballers.
All right, Dragon Ballers, take it easy, and we'll see you next time.
Violent electrical storm erupted in the skies of the planet I was on. I welcomed it. Like it was an outward manifestation of the storm that was raging inside of me. I was determined to survive.